Welcome to Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm Melissa Longo. As a chiropractor, I believe we have the profound ability to impact our communities and people's health on a global level, while also enjoying rich and rewarding personal lives and giving attention to the things that matter to us. Each week, you'll hear an inspiring conversation to give you ideas and insights to rock your practice, pursue your passions, find more connection and meaning in your life, and create a life and business that works for you. Hey everyone, I am really excited to have this opportunity to talk to Dr. Lacey Book today. I know that her and her husband Sean are doing some great things within chiropractic, and I'm excited to be connecting with her today. So welcome to the show, Lacey.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
So for the folks who don't know what you're up to these days, maybe you could just start by giving us a quick sort of snapshot of who is Lacey and what have you got going on these days with your life?
I love the quick snapshot. I think about this and I think, what hat am I wearing today? I'm sure so many people out there can relate. So in a nutshell, I currently am the owner with my husband of a franchise called the Specific Chiropractic Centers. And we operate 16 offices nationwide. They are all the way from Kauai to Boston. My husband and I also own a company called the Black Diamond Club that helps service professionals reach more people by teaching them marketing, mindset, and sales strategies that are a little bit outside of the box than what we've learned in the past. And then I am a coach, a mom, and a wife. So depending on the day is dependent on the hat, but that's me in a nutshell.
You have a lot going on there, and which is like most people, which is fantastic. It sounds like you're really passionate about all the different things that you are doing. What keeps you so focused and inspired on the things that you're doing these days?
You know, it's so funny because I have been in the chiropractic profession for quite some time. I actually started off when I was 16 years old working as a chiropractic assistant. And really, it is the idea that this beautiful thing that we have has not really taken its rightful place on the planet. And it needs to be something that every person on the planet has the opportunity to experience if they desire. And so what drives me is the desire to take chiropractic and make it more prevalent in the world. And, you know, I stay impassioned as much as I can by diving into the green books and building a foundation on our philosophy and our principles and living out my life that way.
Mm-hmm. Did you always feel this way? I mean, I know that you were a life grad, so you had a pretty great foundation there, going to that school. Now, you came out of school full of fire and haven't really lost it with your practice journey?
Absolutely. I don't think that it's ever really gone away. I mean, there's always bumps in the road, and I think that those bumps, you know, are the thing that allow me to move forward as I learn and grow from them. But I definitely have always had a fire and a desire to, you know, share the message of how big chiropractic truly is with as many people as possible. Mm-hmm. And I knew I couldn't do it alone. And so one of the amazing things is that all of the ventures that my husband and I are involved in are in an effort to get chiropractic out there by utilizing a phenomenal group of people to do it with us.
Right. And so did you envision having the franchise of chiropractic offices when you first graduated? Was that your big dream, or did it sort of evolve with your own experience and time?
Yeah, it definitely evolved because I wouldn't say that I envisioned that, you know, especially getting out of school when, you know, you're younger, you're new in business. I don't even think that at that time, without my husband's vision, I would have been capable of coming up with something like that, being a new graduate, because it didn't even fit in the realm of my understanding of what was possible. I didn't know what a franchise was or what it took to create something like that or what that would entail. So no, that wasn't the vision. But as I began to understand what that could be, then yes, that evolved into a vision much bigger than I ever thought I could have.
Mm-hmm. And so your role right now with the businesses is advising, consulting, helping these docs get off the ground, the new offices?
Yeah, absolutely. So as the franchisor, you know, what we do is we have about 30 doctors in our system. And so we help them from, you know, starting up their clinics to also the day-to-day stuff, you know, all of the marketing, the sales strategies, the scripting, the, you know, helping them, you know, hire, have better communication about chiropractic, getting their message out there, creating community. So you name it, we help them be more efficient and effective in the strategies that they're putting out there. Because as many of us know, when you're doing it by yourself, that learning curve is much longer and much harder. So it's nice to have somebody like Sean and myself that have done many things in the past to figure out what works and what doesn't. And then we get to teach it to them, and then they get to execute.
And these are also probably, I'm guessing, the same concepts that you guys teach within the Black Diamond Club.
Absolutely. That's kind of how I would say Black Diamond Club had its birthing, as you would say, was this understanding that the things that we do in the specific chiropractic centers are very outside of the box than what we've been taught in the past when it comes to marketing strategies in chiropractic. It's a little bit against the grain and a different approach. And we found that even though we were practicing purely upper cervical in an all cash environment, in a world where people are living in a medical paradigm, these concepts worked across the United States, no matter where our locations were. And we thought this needs to be taught to more people so they can utilize these strategies in their own businesses so they can reach more people and we can spread this beautiful thing called chiropractic.
Yeah, I love that you keep saying outside the box and it gets great. And I want to pick your brain about what that really means, because I think there's a lot of creative thinkers within chiropractic right now. And I'm curious to hear what that means for you guys.
Yeah, and that's what I love about what's going on in chiropractic right now, because we have the emergence of so many people that are utilizing strategies that aren't what we used to be taught. I mean, growing up in chiropractic at the age of 16, the way that we got patients in the door was mainly through screenings and internal referrals. And I think that a lot of chiropractors can relate to that method of marketing. And I think that a lot of chiropractors have been taught that method of marketing, and that still seems to be the thing that we fall back onto, is going out there, setting up a booth, asking people to get their spines checked and get into the office, right? And what's interesting is I knew coming out of school, I didn't want to do a lot of screenings. That wasn't the way that I enjoyed getting people in the door. And so what we've actually found is that this time and in this day and age, the society that we're living in, people are really yearning for community and connection. And so with that understanding, what we've done is we've studied and worked with a lot of other business coaches that have really good strategies on ideas on how to create community and connection in your own place of business to get people in the door, which is just such a different way of thinking. And there is other groups out there that are doing that, of course, but we've been working on these concepts since 2009, and it's just a great way to market yourself without having to go out there and spend 8 hours a day at a screening like we always felt like we had to do.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, because it's something that I'm observing within my own practice, in my own community, and you're making me feel good about the things that I'm doing marketing-wise, because one of our big things is a monthly event within the community on raising healthy families. And last month, we had the turnout, and a lot of people were talking about the fact that, obviously the numbers weren't what we wanted and this and that. And I said, you know what? Like I said, people have to be reminded that what you gain from being part of something and connecting with other people is completely different than what you learn online. And I think that's really, really important still within our communities, but also within our profession, because I know that at seminars, there's so many great events, and it's hard to get people at some of these events these days because people can listen to shows and they can do online work and be part of Facebook groups and lots of online content, but there's always something invaluable that you get when you are in a room and connecting in person with people.
Absolutely. And I think you hit it on the head there, because it doesn't matter how many people show up. If you provide the space for that to occur, over time, that will grow, and more people will want to be part of that connection and part of that community, because you're right. I mean, they're not getting that as much as they used to, right? Because they are doing everything online. People can practically live out their entire lives behind a computer. I mean,
Yeah.
so people are really yearning for that human connection,
Yeah.
community, and to know that there's other people out there just like them. And so if you can provide an event where people can come together, I mean, that's some of the strategies that we teach in our group is how to create that space and to leverage that to bring more people in the door. And then naturally, they begin to know, like, and trust you, and then they turn into patients, right?
Yeah, I think it's, and I personally really enjoy it. I've always loved talking to people and getting, getting into a room of people and then sharing the ideas. And like you said at the beginning, we have this beautiful thing within chiropractic, and the more people that know about it, the healthier our communities and then the world becomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about I'm curious about your whole journey. So you graduated from Life, and then take us through like how you got to where you're at now.
Oh my gosh. So well, I guess we can rewind a little bit further because when I started working in chiropractic offices at the age of 16, I had no idea what chiropractic was. I don't even think I ever heard the word chiropractic before that moment in my life. And I worked for 5 different doctors over the course of about 7 years. And it was only 2 different offices, but I had a lot of injuries in my life that I had sustained. I was kind of an adrenaline junkie, and I would say that I was not the most coordinated person. So I definitely had some injuries there, but I also had been in a lot of car accidents. I broke my jaw. I went through a passenger windshield. So because of that, I mean, we all know as chiropractors, when you sustain those type of injuries at a younger age and don't get checked and don't get things addressed, I mean, that can lead to some serious health implications down the line. And, I was no exception to that rule. I mean, I definitely had some health issues, that I was dealing with, and I didn't know necessarily that there was an opportunity to have resolution to those. I thought that there was only an opportunity to cover them up. And so I was working for chiropractors and found that being under chiropractic care really helped me thrive more as an individual. And then when I went to school, I thought I knew exactly the way that I was going to practice, what I was going to do, what my practice was going to look like. And my first day was philosophy class. And my teacher said to me, I think he said it to me, but he said it to the class. That feeling where somebody's talking straight to you?
Yeah.
So he said, there's a lot of chiropractors out there that have a miracle story that they talk about all the time. He said, but I got to tell you something. In my office, I expect nothing less than a miracle every single day. I was like, what in the world is he talking about? I didn't know that chiropractic was that big.
Right.
Right. I just didn't fully understand that the capacity of chiropractic was that large. And when I heard that, I thought, I need to figure out what this is. And I started going down the road of studying upper cervical work and knee chest specifically, and ended up getting under care, and literally all my issues went away for the first time in my life. And I had migraine headaches, digestive problems. I was an insomniac. I literally could only sleep about 4 hours a night. I mean, my migraines were debilitating, like in the dark. I had these issues that were plaguing me, and I did feel better and I thrived more under chiropractic. But for me, it was that type of care that my body needed that allowed me to get that resolution. And after that, I was done. I was convicted. I was focused, and I knew exactly that this is the work that I had to do to help people just like me.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that story and your personal experience keeps you inspired. I mean, I had a similar story. I feel like my health transformed completely, and it's something that grounds me and has helped me make choices for my family and keep my fire lit within chiropractic, if I just take a minute and go back and think about what my health was like before I saw a chiropractor to where it is now.
Yeah, I mean, and it's easy to say it now. We obviously wouldn't have felt this way in those moments, but it is such a blessing because it is what allows you to have that absolute conviction that you need not only to make decisions for yourself and your family, but I'm sure that the conviction that you need to make the recommendations for the amazing people that are sitting in front of you that need this thing that we have, right?
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned earlier, obviously we all have bumps in the road within our journey, so in getting you from those days after graduating from Life West to where you're at now, were there any specific bumps or challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them and get through them? Because, between the life little stresses that happen to all of us and bigger bumps that some docs face, it's a reality for most people. So I always like to ask this question because someone out there listening may need to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so when I graduated in 2009, I started working at what was then the headquarters for the Pacific. So Sean Dill, my husband, had already had this idea that he wanted to create a model that multiple offices could thrive under, right? And what was really interesting is he's a huge visionary. And so we had the Pacific Chiropractic Center in Dublin, California. And there was a couple offices that were coming on board that saw his model and wanted to be part of this all cash environment, purely upper cervical. How do we do it and make it successful? Came on board. And what began to happen is we started to grow too quickly. And so this is a really interesting thing because I don't think that a lot of people actually think about this when they have visions and goals and ideas for what they want their office to look like. And I see it happen a lot in chiropractic, where the systems and the infrastructure that are currently in the office are not strong enough to warrant the kind of growth that you have in your mind, right?
Right.
And so for us, we started to grow too quickly. And when you grow too quickly without infrastructure, the whole thing starts to collapse. And so for us as individuals, we started to get in a little bit over our head and we had some really tough learning curves on how to fix that. And we literally had to put the brakes on and halt our growth. Mm-hmm. And we had to say, no more, we can't bring anybody else on. First, we need to figure out what's going to work, how to make it work best, how to systematize it, and how to build the infrastructure so that we can have the growth that we're looking for. Mm-hmm. And literally, we could have lost everything if we didn't take a moment to stop. And I think that a lot of people that I work with and that I coach personally, I see that oftentimes in their offices where they start to have huge influxes of new patients come in. And they start getting better at conversions, but they don't have systems and procedures in place to actually handle that many individuals. Mm-hmm. And then the whole thing gets shaky, and then we get into that roller coaster ride of the ebbs and flows of chiropractic because that stuff wasn't there to warrant the growth that's necessary. Huge learning curve. Cost a good amount of money, a great amount of time, and a lot of sleepless nights, but worth everything that we went through because we were able to create what was necessary to grow, and more importantly, take what we learned and teach it to other people.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. Thank you for sharing all that. I think it's really important that we put the brakes on sometimes in our businesses, right? And also, yes, because sometimes, depending on what's going on in our personal lives, if kids changes in the kid's schedule or illness or anything, those things can distract from our business. And I know personally myself and so many docs have gotten frustrated at times thinking, oh, I'm not growing right now. I'm like, you know what, maybe right now I'm not supposed to grow. I'm supposed to keep things stable and also put some other things in place so that if this happens again, that I can handle it better, or just be okay with staying where things are at and planning for growth in the next quarter.
Yeah. That actually brings something else up. If I can share this, I feel like I
Absolutely.
need to. One of the other issues that we faced, and Sean and I are very open about this, we actually teach a class called Relational Capital, is one of the fundamentals that we always talk about in the Black Diamond Club is that all business problems are personal problems in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes when you look back on the trends of your business, you can see, if you're paying attention, you can see how they relate to things that may have been going on personally with you. And one of the times in our business where Sean and I experienced I guess you would call it a stagnancy, where things weren't quite going our way, we weren't growing the way that we wanted. Like you said, like you're not sure what exactly is happening. You're doing all the right things. And we had to take a look at what was going on. And at that time, I was working with a intuitive life coach,
Mm-hmm.
and she
That
was
sounds
Russian.
super cool.
It's so cool. And she was Russian on top of that. So she was very, very transparent and said everything that was on her mind, like strong Russian woman, right?
Yeah.
And she said to me one day, she said, I have to tell you something and you're not going to like it. And I went, okay. I knew she was going to tell me regardless. And she said, I want you to know that the reason that you're stagnant is because you are holding Sean back. And I was like, what in the world? And your first reaction is to be like, that's insane. Like, why would you ever say something like that? That's not possible. All I do is like support and try to help him get to his vision, but at this time we were essentially working in the same place. Right. He was in the office with me. He was seeing patients, also trying to be this visionary and leading our group. And she said, you're holding him back. And I had to take another moment of hitting the brakes and saying, okay, if this is true, something needs to change. And so I went home that night and I said to him, Katja said this really crazy thing. She said that I'm holding you back. And I went silent, and he looked at me and he said, I think you are. And it was that moment that I said, okay, tomorrow, first day, you're not in the office. You're free to do what you need to do to help us keep moving forward. And it was literally, there was 2 times in our lives where it shifted the trajectory of our life and our business, and that was one of them. And it was because personally, I wanted to be next to him and work with him all the time in the office. And because of that, we were literally doing the work of one person as 2 people. Mm-hmm. And it was just making and creating our business to be stagnant. And it took me being open to hearing something that was hurtful, to be able to move forward. So sometimes when your business is stagnant, take some time and look introspectively and say, is there something going on inside of me that maybe I need to reflect on and address and take time to fix? And if you can do that, your business will flourish.
Mm-hmm. There's so many things that will take our focus off our practices. And I'm always reminding docs the same thing. Like sometimes it's meant to happen in a certain way. Usually it's meant to happen the way it's happening, unless we can actively look back and think that there's mistakes that we've made or things that we could change. But as we often say, sometimes the universe has other plans for us.
Right.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear more about how you and Sean manage your being business partners and husband and wife and parents, right? Stepmom as well. So what does that look like for you? Because a lot of docs work with their partners in some capacity. And certainly if you have any tips or any strategies that really work well for you guys, I'd love to hear them.
Absolutely. I have 2 big tips that I always love to share with people that are working together. Number 1 would be to define your roles. So in that moment of going back to Sean and saying like, hey, am I holding you back? And he says, yes. Then from that point on, we needed to figure out whose responsibility was what, so that we weren't overlapping and doing the work of 2 people, of one person as 2. And so we got very clear on whose responsibilities were what, not just within the business, but also within our house. That was amazing to do. Like who does the laundry? Who does the dishes? Whose responsibility is it to, train our clinic directors? Whose responsibility is it to train our associates? Who's seeing patients in the office? Who's taking the kids to cheerleading, right? Like we sat down and clearly defined whose responsibility was what and what our roles look like. And that cleared up so much, what's the word I want to use? Tension that can occur because you know how relationships go. We have expectation. You know,
Right.
we come into the world with expectation all the time, and expectation is the one thing that leaves room for disappointment. And when you have transparency and understanding of what's truly to be expected instead of assuming, man, it really helps the relationship stay strong, especially when you have so much overlap in your house and in your business. So that definitely would be one of my number one tips. My other tip would be, you know, I see oftentimes that people that work together, when they are working on a vision, oftentimes the issue becomes that they don't have individual visions for themselves. And so what I mean by that is you should be able to sit down and write out a vision for yourself and your life independent of anybody else. And you should have a good, clear idea of what that looks like for you. Your significant other should do the same. And then you should come together to create a common vision. Because sometimes what happens is somebody is the louder voice in the room, the stronger personality in the room, and then it becomes primarily the vision that they have that takes precedence. And then when that occurs, oftentimes over the course of time, people can feel resentful because they're the ones that are making all of the, changing, to accommodate the vision of the other person. And so oftentimes when that happens, there becomes a little bit of resentment, irritability, and those things. But if you each have your own unique individual vision and then can come together with a common vision, then you're able to stay more motivated, stay more driven, stay more focused on what you're truly trying to achieve. And I think that that's extremely, extremely powerful. And a side note, the vision should not just be for the business component, but you should also create vision for the family as well.
Right. And it's creating that communication and giving yourselves that opportunity as a couple to say, okay, what do I want? What do you want? How do we make this happen? And then you can also be more supportive for the other partner.
Absolutely. I can't even tell you how many people I ask, well, what does he want? Or what does she want? And they say, I'm not sure.
Right.
And if you're going to be, especially, regardless if you're working together or not, this is something that you should do with your significant other. But especially if you're working together, having clear role definition, having individual visions, and then a common vision that you're striving towards is extremely powerful and will allow you to get there a lot faster.
Mm-hmm. So then how do you guys manage your family time, work time? You guys are, entrepreneurs. And I know as an entrepreneur, like it's in your heart, right? There's always something you're wanting to create and produce, and ideas are probably going off in your brain every minute of the day. How do you make time for just, Sean and Lacey as a couple, as, within the kids versus business owners, entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I got to say we were really, for the sake of transparency, we were really bad at this for a very long time. Horrible, right? And Sean and we are going on our 11th week in a row traveling to different seminars speaking about chiropractic. So sometimes you get into a place where there isn't a lot of balance per se. So what we've decided is that our ultimate goal is to have some sort of balance over the course of time, not week by week or day by day, but over the course of time. So one of the things for us was we had to start actually scheduling in vacation because There was years where we didn't go anywhere. I don't know if you can relate to that. And that's one of the worst things that you can do for yourself is not rewarding yourself for all the hard work that you've been putting out. And so scheduling in vacation time is a big one to give us some sort of, balance in our lives. Lucky for us now, our kids are in college And so we're so blessed to have two girls that are in business school and doing amazing. So, it makes it a little easier and we don't feel bad when we're gone for 12, 13 weeks in a row. But early on when they were still younger, we just made it work because we had clear roles. We knew that if the girls were going to be in cheer and it required us to be out of the office multiple times a week, we would switch off to make sure that we could make it work so that the kids could have the experience that they needed when they were young as well. And we can still be doing work and working on the business side of things to allow them to have that experience. So it was a lot of juggling balls, but we made it work.
Yeah, and I think that I'm with you with the vacation time, and I think so many docs feel guilty or stressed, or they're not, or affordability wise, they don't want to take time out of their practice. And I'm always just like, you've got to, because when you take time out, you can produce more when you're in. And it just refuels your body and recharges your heart, your soul, your body physically in a way that nothing else can.
Absolutely.
Now, you are obviously your stepmom. So do you have any advice for people out there? I mean, it's very common these days, but it can also be a really tricky situation. And do you have any advice in that role that you would give to other parents? Things that have really worked for you?
Yeah, I've never been asked that before. So, one of the things, my approach was just to always treat them with a level of respect and love that, my family treated me with. And I never looked at them as my stepchildren. And, going through that initial transition, I think was very difficult for them because they didn't know how to be around me, right? And they felt, when kids are really young, they feel guilty, and they carried a lot of guilt, like, well, I have a mom, right?
Yeah.
And so I just always made sure that I didn't allow that stuff to limit the way that I was going to express how I cared about them and how I love them and the things that I wanted to do for them. And so I always, just the same way I am with my patients in the office, I'm always very transparent. I'm always very open. And, I do what feels authentic and congruent to me. And I find that when I stay in that space, people can't help but feel connected. Mm-hmm. And so that's just how I always went about it, I guess, and approached it with them. And we are extremely close. I'm very blessed. I have such a good relationship with both of them. I talk to them every day. I had a surprise visit from my daughter this weekend when she just called me and said, I want to come, be with you. I want to be home. And I went and picked her up. And so it's a great relationship. And it was always just because I made sure that I stayed in that space of being authentically me and just giving to them the way that I have always been given to and will give to, my own children too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a unique relationship, and one that can be really beautiful, like you're describing, and one that can also create a lot of challenge for a lot of families.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for being honest and sharing that. I think that was invaluable. So if you were to think about success, what does success mean to Dr. Lacey? How would you answer that question now? And has it evolved since you first graduated?
Yeah, I think that, and this is really funny, and I do think people can definitely understand when I say this. When you first graduate, you are in a mindset of debt and money and, what you're coming out with and how are you going to make it, what kind of investments you need to make. Like everything that you look at when you initially graduate, oftentimes it's looked at through the lens of just money, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think in the very beginning, I thought to myself that success meant having just purely financial freedom, right? And as I've evolved as an individual and as I've matured and as I've been able to understand more about what I want for myself, I realize that it's not financial freedom, it's just freedom. Freedom of time, freedom to be able to speak my voice, freedom to share the chiropractic message, freedom to help people in a way that I can, unattached to the financial outcome, freedom to live where I want, travel where I want, freedom to be able to have my kids go to whatever college they want to. So it's not financial freedom. It's just like boiled down to this freedom to be able to just be who you're supposed to be, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, freedom's one of my core values for sure, and I'm with you on that one. Just the time freedom, for me with my sons and being able to sometimes alter my hours when I need to because I want to get to a hockey game or just be present for them. That's a luxury that I don't ever want to have to give up.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So if there's something that you wanted all docs to know, I mean, you guys are working with so many chiropractors, both within your businesses, with the practices, with the specific, but also within Black Diamond Club. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges you're observing, and what are let's just pick one, I guess, and then what would be your recommendation for docs in how to overcome that challenge?
I would say the overall umbrella would be mindset and relationship with money. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of, especially new doctors coming out of school, they're $250,000 in debt, which like I mentioned before, or even doctors that are opening or in their own practice. It's really easy for us to do two things. Number one, come from a place of lack and fear when it comes to money. Mm-hmm. And number two, undervalue the service that we provide. I think that when you're in a space where money is an issue or bubbles up to be an issue every once in a while, we get scared to ask for what we truly believe the value of the service chiropractic, the service that we give to people. And so I find that a lot of doctors are not charging what they believe they should be getting paid. And that's a big problem. Like I said in the beginning, the bigness and the capacity of chiropractic, it's beyond what we can really, I think, educatedly understand. And because of that, it's actually invaluable. And so many people are scared to charge what they believe it's worth. Because they feel like if they charge a smaller amount, they'll get more people in the door. So one of the recommendations I have is what I call just this awesomely unique name that I came up with, and it's called the value exercise. So I always recommend that people should write down the word chiropractic. And on one side of the page, write down every single benefit that an individual would receive by being under care. Right? And I mean everything, not superficial, like, oh, they get out of pain, but I'm talking about deep level to, where emotionally they begin to get to a place where they feel happier, which means they're less irritable and they can have better interactions with their children or their significant other. Like deep, what do people gain by getting this beautiful thing called chiropractic? And then on the other side of that, I want you to write down every detrimental thing that could potentially happen if they don't get chiropractic. And I think that is far more powerful than even the benefits. Because if you can begin to understand what could potentially happen to people, their lives, their families, their communities, by you not speaking up, by you not giving them care, you can begin to see actually how valuable it is. Mm-hmm. And then you need to read it every day. And if you have trouble going into financial conversations because you're worried about the price, you're worried if, it may cost too much, read that list before you go in there. And you will be far more convicted. And you will be able to come from a place of being truly authentic and telling them, this is far worth more than what I'm asking for. Mm-hmm. This can impact your life in ways you can't even begin to understand right now. And so that's a powerful exercise, and I think that can help you to step into that mindset of really valuing and asking for what you believe you should be paid, but more important, not looking at every person or every need as a money need, but more as a value need, a life need, a necessity, right? Mm-hmm.
I love that we wrapped up here with a really powerful exercise that listeners, you can sit quietly with yourself when you get it some time, with a cup of coffee or glass of wine or whatever your beverage of choice is, and really think about this, because I think it can shift your head, no doubt that it can shift your headspace and then make a huge difference in how you operate your business.
Absolutely.
I've really enjoyed chatting with you, Lacey. I'm going to have to wrap things up. So I want to thank you for your time today. I know you are a busy woman and making some great impact within your communities and also within chiropractic. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here today. If you like this show, please share it with another chiropractor and connect them with this message. We are always better off together than we are alone. If you haven't yet subscribed, head on over to Apple Podcasts or iTunes, and don't forget to rate and review the show while you're there. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram and Facebook and find out more about today's guests and all things Rockstar Doctor Life by clicking in those show notes. See you next time.